All right, guys, this is just going to be a quick video where I read the reading for this assignment for you out loud. Again, you only need to watch this if you want some help with reading the document, if you'd like to have it read aloud to you. Otherwise, you can just read it on your own. All right, so everything about ancient China. Geography. Ancient China was a geographically isolated area. The Tian Shan and Himalayan mountains, along with a large desert, created boundaries to the west and southwest. The Gobi Desert protected the region in the north, and the Yellow Sea was its boundary to the east. This isolation led the ancient Chinese to believe that China was the center of the earth and the sole source of civilization, which led China to be called the Middle Kingdom. And at this point, guys, this one means that by now you should be able to answer question one over here. Chinese culture began around 1500 BCE. They had a very advanced civilization. The ancient Chinese first lived along the Huanghe and Yangtze rivers. These rivers helped people grow crops and feed the large population. The rivers also supplied them with water for irrigation and transportation. The Huanghe is known as the Yellow River. The river got its name from the loess found in it. Loess is a fine, wind-blown soil that is found in the river. As this loess settles on the bottom, the water rises and then there can be a flood. A large flood could wipe out crops and lead to starvation. These floods led the Huanghe River to be called the River of Sorrows because it could bring such sadness and devastation. And again, that's going to be question two. As early Chinese people began to farm in the Huanghe River Valley, they found they could control and lessen the damage of flooding through irrigation. This need to control the river led to a very strong central government in ancient China. The government organized the building of these irrigation networks from the river, which helped stabilize farming production and led to a population increase. The Shang Dynasty. Around 1650 BCE, the Shang dynasty came to rule China. They ruled until 1027 BCE. By studying the artifacts left behind by the Shang people, we know that noblewomen had high social status. However, most people in ancient China were peasants. Farmers lived together in small villages, with homes that had dirt floors that were dug below the ground. They did this to keep warm in winter and cool in the summer. Peasants had very hard lives. Everyone in the family worked long days farming the fields. When they were not farming, they had to work for the emperor repairing irrigation ditches and dikes. If a war started, then the peasant men had to go and fight. Religious beliefs. During the Shang dynasty, people prayed to many gods, polytheistic, and also nature spirits. The Chinese believed that their gods would not listen to prayers from common people. The gods would only listen to prayers from the ancestors of the king. This made the king very powerful because the people need him to pray to his ancestors and ask the gods for good things like health, wealth, and victory in war. Eventually, people decided that everyone could pray to their ancestors, and the king was not the only one allowed to do this. This special respect for their deceased ancestors is called veneration of ancestors. People would pray to their deceased ancestors and ask them to speak to the gods and help them. The Chinese believed that yin and yang had to be in harmony for the well-being of the universe. Yin and yang represent opposites. Yin was earth, darkness, and female forces, and yang was heaven, light, and male forces. Oracle bones. The Chinese used oracle bones to see what would be in the future. Priests would carve questions into the animal bones or turtles. The question usually needed a yes or no answer. Priests then heated the bone or shell until it cracked. The cracks were then interpreted and thought to be advice from their ancestors or gods. Ancient Chinese writing. Chinese writing is very difficult to learn. In ancient times, only the wealthy learned to read and write. Even though it was a very hard language to learn, it did unite the people of the Chinese Empire. Remember, China was a very isolated area. The ancient Chinese did not trade with other civilizations very often until about 1000 BCE. By using the same kind of writing, people from different parts of the Chinese Empire could communicate with each other. These people did not always speak the same language, but they did write the same language. The Chu dynasty. In 1027, supporters of the Chu fought the army of the Shang dynasty and beat them. The Chu dynasty then ruled China until 256 BCE. Under the rule of the Chu, China created a feudal state. Feudalism was a type of government where local lords ruled over their own land but owed military support and loyalty to the ruler. Feudal rulers had a lot of power. During the Chu dynasty, China's economy grew. They learned how to make iron and started making their weapons and farm tools out of it. Iron was strong and cheap, so the Chinese could create better weapons in higher numbers to support a larger army. During the Chu dynasty, the Chinese also made the first books and began using money for the first time. The use of money made trade easier. New roads and canals were built, and which helped trade to grow and improve the economy. When the economy grew, the population also grew as well. By the end of the Chu dynasty, China had increased in overall size, population, and prosperity. The Silk Road. By 1000 BCE, the Chinese had learned how to make silk from the cocoons of silkworms. Only nobles and royalty could buy this expensive and beautiful fabric. Silk became China's most important and valuable export. Exports are goods that are sent to another place and sold to other people. The Chinese would not allow anyone outside their empire to learn how to make silk because they did not want others to steal this secret and take this profitable export away from them. The trade route that took silk to other parts of the world was called the Silk Road. The Silk Road linked China to the West. The Mandate of Heaven. The mandate of heaven was the divine right to rule. This means that the rulers of ancient China believed the gods had given them the right to rule by giving them the mandate of heaven. If the empire was experiencing good things like wealth, healthy crops, and victory in war, then they believed the ruler had the mandate of heaven. When things started to go bad in China, like sickness, bad crops, floods, and defeat in war, they believed that the gods had taken the mandate of heaven away from the ruler, and they needed to find somebody new to rule them. When a new ruler came to power in China, they would say that person now had the mandate of heaven, or the right to rule given to them by the gods. As long as the dynasty provided good government, it kept the mandate of heaven. If the rulers became weak or corrupt, the Chinese believed that heaven would take away its support for that ruler. The rise and fall of dynasties was called the dynastic cycle. Each time a new ruler came to power, the dynastic cycle started over. All right, guys, that's it. So make sure we answer all 9 questions, hit submit, and we will be set with the assignment. Thanks, guys.